Hi and welcome to this wingtips review of the F1 Swing V3, and for this review we're using the 5.5 metre wing. F1 are one of the class leading wing manufacturers who have for this year's wings made some quite radical changes to their lineup. They still have three wings, the Strike V3 CWC for low wind, Strike V3 for freeride freestyle, and the Swing featured in this review, which is their dedicated wave wing. With the Strike V3 aimed at intermediate pro riders, the Swing also doubles up as the wing in F1's lineup that will most suit beginners, due to its improved low end and mild-mannered riding characteristics. F1 also took a completely new approach to the materials in the Swing V3, so let's go over that now. The strut and where the strut joins the leading edge are both made from Hi-Tech's 178 GSM fabric. The rest of the leading edge to the wingtips is Hi-Tech's 158 GSM. The main canopy is F1's nanomaterial, a micro ripstop polyester that is 55 GSM and plasma treated to improve stretch resistance. The trailing edge is HT80, which is a woven high tenacity double ripstop to resist stretch across the trailing edge. The wing canopy also features staggered seams to spread loading, radio cuts on the rear of the canopy to spread load, and the load diffuser on the centre rear of the canopy, also to spread loading in this high tension area. With regard to design, the Swing has a deeper wing section than the Strike for better pump and go low end, reduced wingspan over the Strike to aid fast turns in waves, and a reduced dihedral to make it flag perfectly flat and stable. F1 also updated the handles on the Swing, and they're different to the new handles on the Strike V3. The Swing handles are thicker and more rounded in diameter, as well as being more rigid and more towards a rigid handle. Whilst they are pretty stiff, they do still have some movement in them. They are not as instantly reactive as a true hard handle. However, they do carry the advantages of a soft handle, i.e. no board damage from the handles hitting the board, and in theory, lighter weight. For me personally, I find them much better than the handles on the Strike V2, which was a true soft handle, but not as effective as a true hard handle. So they sit somewhere in the middle for overall wing control. The Swing has a double inflation system, 8 psi for the leading edge and 10 psi for the strut, and features a normal F1 push to deflate button valve. The wing comes with a good quality bungee cord leash with a buckled Velcro wrist strap. If we look at overall quality of construction, then we can see good quality stitching throughout the wing, as you would expect of a premium brand, although in this 5.5 metre example there does appear to be a bit of an issue with the strut valve, as you can see. The front flag handle is a robust handle with good rigidity and a soft patch to protect your knuckles. It's one of the better, if not one of the best, flag out handles I've used. Okay, let's talk about on the water performance. With the updated materials in the Swing V3, we have a higher total wing weight than previous versions, which of course is for strength and longevity, which are good reasons. However, this also means that the wing is now around 200 grams heavier, and with much of that weight towards the trailing edge of the wing, with thicker trailing edge canopy material and the load diffuser on the rear of the strut. This all makes the new Swing float less than previous versions and more susceptible to the trailing edge dropping in lighter winds during a jibe. Overall, it does feel like a heavier wing in comparison to the previous generation. In terms of playfulness, it is not designed to be a free ride wing, and as such its overriding characteristics are of a solid, dependable wing with a good low end and excellent flag out, both things you want when playing in larger waves. It also has a very good upwind performance, and in this regard I felt it was less unsettled than the Strike when pointing very high into the wind. Just because it is a wave wing does not mean it can't do freeride or more freestyle orientated manoeuvres. It just doesn't feel as accomplished doing them as the Strike V3. With this wing being aimed at wave riding, then you can of course be assured that it is supremely stable and confident when flagged out. However, this does mean that other areas of performance are affected. Most notable for me was when going into attack, the wing would always want to fly flat or horizontal. This meant that the wing was more difficult to fly into attack on its side, ready to repower quickly, as it always tries to flatten out and fly horizontally. You can of course account for this with modified technique, but it does mean the wing feels less clean cutting through attack than a more freeride orientated wing. One thing we should discuss is low end performance, as some of this was sacrificed in the new Strike V3 in return for a better high end. The swing is not in this same situation. It has a very good low end and provides a good strong pull from a deeper profile to the wing than the Strike V3. The downside to this deeper profile is that the swing has a continuous, fairly strong pull throughout the wind range, which makes it a more physical wing to use for extended periods than the Strike V3. The swing is not designed for jumping, being that it is a downwind or wave riding wing. As such, its jumping abilities are significantly less impressive than the Strike. If I was to name a list of things I would want from a wave wing, they would be excellent stable flag out, a good solid and comfortable flag handle for control of the wing, good low end for getting out of tricky situations in the wave impact zone, and a good upwind performance for getting back upwind after downwinding or riding a wave. Unsurprisingly, these are the 4 things the Swing V3 does exceptionally well, and whilst I have critiqued its performance in other areas as not being as good as the Strike, we should not forget that this wing is not meant to be a freestyle wing. In the environment it is designed to work in, which is waves, it beats the Strike V3 hands down. Conversely, in the playful, freestyle, freeride area, the Strike wins, so we really don't have any surprising results here. If we look at this purely from a beginner's perspective, the Swing would be my pick, regardless of usage, purely because the Strike has a far less accomplished low end, and for beginners, good pumping technique to get onto foil just isn't a skill they have, which makes the Swing a far better option for them. In some respects, it's hard to compare this year's Swing V3 to last year, as so much has changed. We have an overall tighter canopy, a more stable wing profile, and an overall stiffer wing due to much higher inflation pressures. The dihedral of the wing is very flat, and we have the new semi-rigid handles for more precise wing control, including the flag handle, which is exceptionally good. The wing features the new staggered seams, a load diffuser, and plasma treatment for the nano canopy to stop stretch. It remains to be seen if F1's plasma treated nano canopy will be as effective as Duotone's Mod 3. We can only hope, as the Strike V3 canopy that has not got the nano material has already proven that without plasma treatment there is still some significant canopy stretch occurring. Relatively unchanged from last year's Swing is the good low end and the wave focus of this particular wing, although we have lost some of the lightweight that the Swing was known for due to the focus on longevity and hard wearing materials. For future improvement, I feel like a lot of extra weight went into the rear of this canopy in F1's new designs, and the Swing seems to be more affected by this than the Strike, with it feeling more tail heavy in the jibes than the Strike and overall feeling like a heavier, less playful wing. If we come on to comparing this wing with the Strike, then for the Swing the standout characteristics are most of the ones you would want for a wave orientated wing. Good unflustered flag out, excellent low end for get up and go should be unlucky enough to crash in the wave impact zone, excellent upwind ability to get you back upwind after a wave ride, and some longevity or resilience of the wing materials should they take a wave impact. The only thing I would like to add to this list is a bit more willingness to float rather than hang a bit tail heavy compared to the Strike. If we briefly compare the Strike with the Swing, then the Strike has better tacking and much better jumping ability and a lighter and more playful feel to the wing. The Strike is definitely more freestyle or freeride orientated. The Swing is clearly aimed at wave riders, but I also feel it would suit beginners due to the good low end, whereas the Strike I would steer beginners away from for precisely the opposite reason, and it needing a far more competent pumping technique to get the most out of it. The Swing is plenty capable of doing freeride, it just doesn't do it as well as the Strike, so whilst I've categorised it as being what F1 designed it for, which is wave riding, that does not mean it can't do freeride as well, it's just less fun and capable than the Strike in this environment. The last element to cover is price. The 5.5 metre wing covered in this review is £1,049. This pushes it over the 1,000 mark, and for many this sounds like a lot of money for a wing. In some respects you are paying for brand, however it would be remiss not to mention all the research and development that has gone into this year's F1 wings, and this type of development costs money, which we passed on in the product pricing. The wing does come with a leash and valve adapter, which should be factored in when comparing to other wings like Duotone that do not come with these options. This is a premium brand, and as such it comes with premium pricing and brand reputation. However, it's not difficult to see all the improvements and developments in the wing, and if we want to continue to see such developments, we do need to accept that development like this will come at a price. We can only hope that the nano canopy featured on this wing gives it a better longevity than the Strike V3, as it is too early in this material's lifespan to say if it is effective against canopy stretch, and ultimately this will determine if the price is worth paying. Lastly, this wing was provided to me as a demo wing by the Watersports Centre. They are my local wing dealer, and in the interests of transparency, they do not have any input into these videos. The review is my own thoughts on the product, and if you like the review, I'd appreciate it if you could show them some support for continuing to support producing unbiased content such as this. Links are in the description.